What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Lennox Lewis. Big up England, big up. Lennox Lewis tells Anthony Joshua don't fret on future after losing a rematch on a split decision to Alexander Usyk, but calls for a unification bout between the Ukrainian and Tyson Fury. Lennox Lewis still believes that Anthony Joshua still has a future in boxing, which is 32. Alexander Usyk, which is 35, defeated Joshua again on Saturday night by split decision. Despite an improved performance, Joshua was once again outclassed by Usyk. Lewis took to Twitter to demand a unification bout from Usyk and Tyson Fury. The winner of Fury and Usyk would become the unified heavyweight champion. Lewis, 56, was the last undisputed champion in the division almost 20 years ago. The British legend, who is the last undisputed champion, called for what surely would be one of the biggest fights in boxing history and claimed the fans deserve to see an undeniably clash between the two heavyweights. The 56-year-old was quick to pay and defeated Joshua his dues and was confident that this was not the end of his career at the top of the boxing pyramid, and instead his time would come again. Okay. He said, good showing by AJ too. Don't fret. There are still big fights out there we want to see. He later added, hey, Tyson and Alexander Usyk, can we finally get an undisputed heavyweight showdown? 19 years is a long time and the fans deserve it. Those are the words of Lennox Lewis. Let me counterpunch. I think Lennox Lewis, has kind of a big brother slash relationship, unwanted big brother slash relationship with Anthony Joshua. Because even when Joshua loses, he doesn't criticize Joshua. I think he criticizes what can make him better. I think it's more of a tough love thing with Lennox Lewis and Anthony Joshua. Now, as far as the negotiations went with Wilder, I think that was the only hang-up. But then, of course, AJ and Lennox Lewis, they do have history, and it's not all good, okay? But it's not all bad either, okay? So we have to add the good and the bad in that situation. And, I think he's looking at it like, look, he can't beat me because I avenged everyone that beat me, but he can still have a future in boxing. And at 32 years of age, if he keeps fighting, eventually Fury and Usyk will probably retire before he does, unless he takes another L or two, and then that'll probably discourage him on out of the sport of boxing. But what Lennox is saying is like, listen, your time is not right now, but it will come sooner or later. If you still have goals, you can still do it. But to counterpunch Lennox Lewis, I was actually looking for Lennox Lewis to extend his hand like he did before when he took his first L. When AJ took his first L, he said, hey, he needs somebody, that is somewhat of a professor compared to a third grader like he felt Rob McCracken was, meaning that Rob McCracken couldn't take Anthony Joshua anywhere further than he took him. He needs someone else. But I think what he needs is himself. I think he needs Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis needs to teach him how to fight big, how to fight tall, teaches him his tricks. And I think the pride aside now needs to be set aside in order for Anthony Joshua to get better. You know what I mean? And one thing about Lennox Lewis is a guy that I think can teach him, a thing or two about a thing or two when it comes to the sport of boxing. After all, if he taught Deontay Wilder how to throw a proper jab outside of an apartment complex one hot day, he could teach Anthony Joshua everything that he has. That's if Anthony Joshua is receptive and not too prideful, because remember, the last time we've heard anything from Joshua, speaking of Lennox Lewis, he called him a clown. So, we don't know if that's been swept under the rug as of now. We don't know what type of mindset Anthony Joshua's in. He said he's going to take 2 weeks off and start back training, but who he will be training with, that's a very, very big question mark on his behalf. But I would recommend someone like Lennox Lewis that knows heavyweight boxing as well as any other heavyweight on the planet, that has the credentials to make him a better fighter. You know, you don't supposed to fight like Mike Tyson because you're not 5'9". You're 6'6". That's equivalent of what Lennox Lewis was, a bigger heavyweight. He was like 6'4", right, or 6'5". So I think Joshua could learn a lot from Lennox Lewis based on the similarities they have together. You know, being who they are, where they're from, you know, teach AJ the pedigree. That's if AJ wants to listen. But it is good. He did want to send his condolences, and shout out to Lennox Lewis for doing that, because, you know, a lot of people that really don't like AJ is shitting on him heavy right now. Absolutely, positively. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about Lennox Lewis telling AJ, don't fret. It will be another time for you soon. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace!